It was a busy evening at a popular restaurant in the city. The place was filled with the soft hum of conversations, clinking plates, and the occasional burst of laughter. People had come to enjoy a nice meal, escape the stress of their day, or celebrate small victories. Among them was a man who clearly stood out not because of his charm, but because of the way he carried himself. He was wealthy and everyone could see it. His suit was perfectly tailored, his watch shone under the restaurant lights, and his voice carried a tone of arrogance that made the staff subtly tense as he moved through the dining area. He was seated at a large table with several friends, talking loudly about his accomplishments and making sure everyone around him noticed just how successful he was. He laughed at his own jokes, not waiting for anyone else to respond. His friends followed along, smiling, nodding, and occasionally throwing in a comment to encourage him, but it was clear he was the center of his own universe. Among the restaurant staff was a young waitress. She had been working there for several years and was known for her efficiency, politeness, and ability to stay calm under pressure. She moved gracefully between tables, carrying plates of food, taking orders, and always offering a smile, even when the restaurant became overwhelming. Her life outside of work was simple, and she didn't have any fancy things, but she carried herself with dignity and confidence. As she approached the table where the wealthy man sat, she noticed the sharp glint of entitlement in his eyes. He looked her up and down with a smirk, clearly sizing her up, and she immediately recognized that she would have to navigate his presence carefully. She greeted him politely, asking if he and his friends were ready to order. Her voice was soft but steady, a reflection of her calm nature. The millionaire responded with a sneer disguised as a smile. He leaned back in his chair and said something about how she probably didn't know much about the world outside this restaurant. His words were meant to belittle, to make her feel small in front of his friends and the other diners. But the waitress, instead of responding defensively, kept her composure. She nodded politely, jotted down their orders, and moved on to serve other tables, her movements precise and controlled. Despite his attempt to humiliate her, she didn't let his attitude affect her. She knew that reacting angrily or showing frustration would only give him the satisfaction he was looking for. Other staff members watched quietly, impressed by her restraint. The patrons nearby noticed the tension, whispering among themselves about the man's arrogance and her calmness. Some shook their heads, feeling sympathy for the young woman who was clearly being tested. As the night went on, the millionaire grew more impatient. He wanted attention, and when he realized that his insults weren't having the effect he desired, he decided to escalate. He called the waitress back to his table, asking for another drink, and this time his tone carried a sharper edge. He made a joke about how she must be dreaming of a life bigger than what she had, and he laughed loudly, drawing the eyes of everyone nearby. His friends chuckled, encouraging him, but the waitress didn't flinch. She maintained her polite demeanor, refilling their drinks efficiently, and quietly excusing herself when the task was complete. After serving the drinks, she moved to another table, helping an elderly couple who had just arrived. She smiled warmly, listening carefully to their requests, and ensured they felt welcome. Even in the face of the millionaire's arrogance, she continued to treat everyone with equal respect. It was this grace under pressure that made her stand out, though the wealthy man probably didn't notice. The millionaire, feeling that his previous attempts to humiliate her had failed, began to look around the restaurant for a new way to assert his superiority. His eyes fell upon a piano in the corner. It was not being used at the moment, but it was polished and inviting, a centerpiece of the restaurant's more elegant area. He had an idea that he thought would be entertaining. Leaning back, he called the waitress over again, his voice dripping with condescension. He asked her if she could play the piano. The way he asked made it clear he expected her to fail, to embarrass herself in front of him and the other diners. His friends looked on, smirking, waiting for what they thought would be a ridiculous display. The waitress hesitated for just a moment, considering the situation. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the restaurant, some curious, some skeptical, and some quietly supportive. With a polite smile, she agreed. She walked over to the piano with a steady gait, careful to keep her posture straight and her movements calm. As she approached, she could hear murmurs from the other diners, a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. The millionaire leaned back, clearly amused, certain that he was about to enjoy a private show of failure. He imagined the laughter that would follow, the way everyone would see him as clever and witty, and she as someone trying to reach above her place. Once she reached the piano, she took a deep breath and positioned her fingers above the keys. The restaurant fell quieter as people sensed that something different was about to happen. Patrons stopped their conversations and turned to watch, intrigued by the unfolding scene. The millionaire's expression was a mixture of confidence and expectation. He did not yet know that the evening was about to take an unexpected turn. The waitress began to play. At first, the notes were soft, almost tentative, but as she continued, her skill became apparent. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, bringing a beautiful melody to life. The music filled the room, weaving around the chatter and clinking dishes, capturing the attention of every diner. It was clear that she had talent beyond what anyone could have imagined. Her eyes were focused, her body in rhythm with the music, and her expression calm yet passionate. The millionaire's smirk faded as he realized that she was not only competent, but extraordinary. He had expected awkward mistakes, stumbles, or hesitation, but none of that happened. Instead, he found himself captivated by the melody, the fluidity of her movements, and the depth of feeling she poured into each note. His friends, initially ready to laugh at the situation, were equally stunned, their amusement replaced with genuine admiration. As she continued, more and more diners stopped what they were doing to listen. The music created an atmosphere of respect and awe, turning the attention away from the millionaire's arrogance and onto the true talent that had been hidden in plain sight. The waitress played with a combination of technical skill and heartfelt emotion that was impossible to ignore. Even the staff who had seen her many times before were caught off guard by the sheer quality of her performance. By the end of the piece, the room erupted in applause. Diners cheered and clapped, some whistling, others calling out words of admiration. The waitress, without showing arrogance or seeking attention, acknowledged the applause with a gentle bow. She had transformed the situation from one of potential humiliation into a moment of triumph, dignity, and artistry. The millionaire, stunned and speechless, struggled to process what had just happened. His attempts to belittle someone had backfired completely, and he was forced to confront the reality that wealth and status could not overshadow talent, grace, or character. For the first time that evening, he felt small, humbled, and unsure of how to respond. He looked around at the diners who had witnessed the scene, realizing that they now admired the waitress far more than they ever could have admired him. The waitress returned to her duties quietly, resuming her work as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But the energy in the restaurant had shifted. Patrons talked quietly about what they had just experienced, sharing their amazement at her skill. Even the millionaire could not help but reflect on the unexpected lesson he had received, a lesson in humility, respect, and the power of staying composed under pressure. As the night continued, the waitress moved from table to table, serving with the same care, efficiency, and politeness that had always defined her. Yet now there was a subtle difference. People looked at her with admiration, and the millionaire could no longer assert his superiority over her. She had shown that true talent and dignity could not be undermined by arrogance or wealth. The evening concluded with the restaurant gradually emptying, but the story of the waitress's remarkable performance lingered in the minds of all who had witnessed it. For the millionaire, it was a night of unexpected reflection. For the waitress, it was a quiet affirmation of her strength, skill, and the value of remaining true to oneself. And for everyone present, it was a reminder that real talent and character often shine brightest in the most unassuming people. The night in the restaurant continued, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The diners who had watched the young waitress play the piano were still talking quietly among themselves, sharing their amazement. Even the staff were smiling, exchanging glances that reflected pride and admiration. She had shown not only talent but also the courage to face someone who had intended to humiliate her. Her performance had left an impression that would not fade quickly. Back at his table, the millionaire was still trying to regain his composure. He sat silently for a moment, staring at his drink, feeling a mix of disbelief and unease. He had come to the restaurant with the intention of asserting his superiority, but the young waitress had turned the situation completely around. He could not deny that she had talent, and the fact that she had remained calm in front of his arrogance made him feel even more unsettled. He leaned toward his friends, speaking in a lower voice, almost as if he were confessing, but still trying to maintain his pride. "Did you see that? I didn't think she could play like that. His friends exchanged quiet nods, avoiding eye contact, realizing that he had lost the upper hand. The millionaire was not used to being impressed by anyone in public, especially someone he considered beneath him. Yet, there was no denying the truth. Meanwhile, the waitress returned to her duties, serving other tables with the same careful attention as before. She took orders, refilled drinks, and checked on diners, all while maintaining a calm and friendly demeanor. It was clear to everyone that her performance at the piano was not an act for attention. It was simply a part of who she was. Her confidence did not come from arrogance, but from skill and dedication. The millionaire, unable to sit quietly for long, decided he needed to do something else to regain control. He glanced around the restaurant, looking for a way to assert himself. His eyes returned to the piano and then to the waitress. He could not stop thinking about her performance, about how effortlessly she had taken command of the room with nothing but her music. He felt a strange mix of frustration and admiration. After a moment, he called her over again, his voice a little tighter than before. "Can you play something else?" he asked. There was an edge in his tone, a subtle challenge hidden beneath politeness. He expected her to hesitate or falter, but instead she nodded calmly. She walked over to the piano once more, aware of the attention she would attract, but not letting it intimidate her. As she sat at the piano, she felt a wave of focus wash over her. She knew exactly what she wanted to play, a piece that would not just demonstrate technical skill, but also convey emotion and depth. The restaurant grew quiet again, all eyes turning toward her. She could hear the soft clinking of silverware and the quiet breathing of diners, but she did not let it disturb her concentration. Her hands hovered above the keys, ready to bring the music to life. She began to play, and immediately the room was filled with a beautiful melody. Her fingers moved gracefully, each note precise and deliberate, yet infused with feeling. The music flowed smoothly, creating an atmosphere that was both calming and captivating. Patrons leaned in to listen, some with wide eyes, others with smiles, all drawn into the world she was creating through sound. The millionaire watched, unable to look away. He had never expected that someone working as a waitress could command such skill and presence. There was a quiet strength in the way she played, a confidence that came from years of practice and dedication. Every note seemed intentional, every pause meaningful. He felt a strange sensation, something between awe and unease, realizing that he had underestimated her completely. Her friends at the table, who had once laughed at the idea, were now silent. The smug expressions had disappeared, replaced by a kind of respectful astonishment. They could see that the young woman at the piano was far more than she appeared on the surface. She was talented, composed, and completely unafraid to take control of a situation that had been designed to humiliate her. As the piece continued, the restaurant became almost hushed. The soft sound of the piano filled every corner, wrapping around diners and staff alike. Even the other waitresses paused in their tasks for a moment, unable to resist listening to the beauty of the music. It was clear that the young woman was sharing a part of herself through the piano, and everyone could feel it. Halfway through her performance, the millionaire shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He could not reconcile the image of the arrogant, mocking man he had been moments ago with the reality of someone being so deeply moved by the talent of a waitress. He had come to belittle, but now he felt exposed, forced to confront the fact that his wealth and social status meant nothing in the face of genuine skill and artistry. The young waitress continued, her focus unwavering. She had decided not to let the man's arrogance affect her, and in doing so, she had taken control of the narrative. She was not performing for him. She was performing because it was who she was. Her music told a story of patience, resilience, and quiet strength. The room responded instinctively with nods, smiles, and the occasional whispered compliment. When she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. No one had expected such a moving performance, and the restaurant seemed to hold its collective breath. Then slowly, applause began. It started quietly, then grew louder, spreading throughout the room. Patrons clapped enthusiastically, some even standing to show their appreciation. The young woman bowed gracefully, acknowledging the audience without arrogance, her face calm and serene. The millionaire was speechless. He looked around, seeing admiration directed toward the waitress rather than himself. It was a humbling experience, one he had not anticipated. He felt an unfamiliar emotion, respect, tinged with regret for the way he had treated her earlier. He realized that he had been wrong to underestimate someone based on their position or appearance. The waitress returned to her station, continuing her work with the same care and attention as before. She smiled politely at the diners, refilled drinks, and took orders with grace. But now there was a subtle shift in the way people looked at her. They saw someone extraordinary, someone who had taken a challenging situation and turned it into a moment of triumph. The millionaire, for his part, sat quietly at his table reflecting on what had happened. He understood that his wealth and arrogance could not dictate the respect or admiration of others. True skill, humility, and composure were far more powerful. He found himself thinking about the lessons of the evening, about how easily he had been outshone by someone he had tried to demean. As the night drew on, the restaurant slowly emptied, but the impact of the young woman's performance lingered. Staff continued their duties, but there was a quiet pride among them, knowing they had someone exceptional in their midst. Diners left with smiles, conversations buzzing about the surprising display of talent and courage they had witnessed. The young waitress, finishing her shift, felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had faced an uncomfortable situation with dignity and had shown that talent and character could never be undermined by arrogance. The night had been more than just work. It had been a moment of personal triumph, one that would stay with her for a long time. The millionaire left the restaurant in a very different mood than when he had arrived. He had come with the intention of humiliating someone he saw as beneath him, but he had left with a humbling lesson. He realized that true greatness was not measured by wealth, but by skill, courage, and the ability to remain composed under pressure. As the door closed behind him, the young waitress continued her evening, unaware of how deeply she had affected someone who thought he could dominate everyone around him. The night had revealed her strength and talent, and in doing so, it had left a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. The evening had moved on, but the energy in the restaurant still felt different. Patrons lingered a little longer at their tables, talking quietly about the incredible performance they had witnessed. Some even returned to the piano area to see if the young waitress might play again. Though she had returned to her regular duties, she moved with her usual poise, taking orders, serving drinks, and ensuring that everyone felt comfortable, all the while carrying herself with a quiet confidence that seemed to glow from within. The millionaire sat at his table, lost in thought. He had always believed that money, influence, and a commanding presence were enough to impress and control people, but tonight had proven otherwise. He had expected to see someone embarrassed, perhaps stumble or fail, and instead he had witnessed artistry, courage, and composure. His ego, which had been so sure of itself, felt oddly small. He found himself thinking about her as more than just a waitress. She was someone remarkable, someone who refused to be diminished by his arrogance. He tried to speak to his friends about it, but the words didn't come easily. His friends, sensing the change in his demeanor, stayed quiet, unsure how to respond. They had come to watch a spectacle of humiliation, but had instead been part of a lesson in humility. The millionaire's eyes kept drifting back to the waitress who was now serving another table with a warm smile and attentive care. She looked completely at ease in her own world, and the contrast to his own discomfort was undeniable. Curiosity mixed with admiration, and the millionaire decided to speak to her again, this time more cautiously. He called her over and asked if she had any formal training in music. His tone was almost hesitant, as if he already knew the answer might challenge his assumptions. She smiled politely and explained that she had studied piano for years, mostly on her own and through lessons when she was younger. Music had always been her refuge, a place where she could express herself and find peace, even when life outside the piano was difficult. The millionaire listened quietly, absorbing every word. He was struck by the dedication it took for someone to achieve such skill, without relying on status, connections, or wealth. Here was a person whose talent was earned, nurtured with patience and persistence and not flaunted to gain recognition. It was humbling to realize that all his accomplishments, which he often used to feel superior, had not required this level of personal sacrifice or passion. Meanwhile, the young waitress continued her work seamlessly, moving from table to table, checking on diners and ensuring that everyone had what they needed. Her demeanor remained calm and composed, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everyone around her could sense that she had achieved something remarkable. Patrons whispered compliments to each other, some remarking on the skill, others on the way she handled herself under pressure. Her performance had created a ripple effect, inspiring respect not just for her music but for her character. The millionaire, feeling a mix of awe and regret, asked if she would play once more, this time in a more relaxed and friendly setting. He realized that his earlier attempts at mockery had been cruel, and he genuinely wanted to see her talent appreciated without the tension of confrontation. She agreed with a gentle nod, moving back to the piano with her usual grace. The restaurant fell silent again, waiting to be captivated once more. As she played, the music carried an even deeper emotion. It was not just about technical skill now. It was about expression, storytelling, and connection. Each note seemed to tell a story of perseverance, resilience, and inner strength. Diners were drawn in, some closing their eyes to absorb the beauty, others sitting forward with rapt attention. Even the staff paused, watching with a mix of admiration and pride. The millionaire watched intently, unable to look away. He felt an unexpected sense of humility wash over him. He had gone from feeling superior to feeling inspired, learning something about the true value of skill, patience, and character. He realized that his attempts to dominate and belittle had been petty, and that this young woman had shown him a lesson he would not forget. Her music, her composure, and her grace were all forms of quiet power that he had never encountered before. The performance continued, each note resonating with emotion and technical mastery. The young waitress played with such fluidity that it was as if the piano itself had become an extension of her spirit. Patrons were mesmerized, the restaurant filled with a sense of awe that replaced the usual background noise. People who had come to eat and chat were now fully absorbed in the moment, united in their appreciation of her talent. When she finished, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Diners clapped, some rising to their feet, their admiration genuine and heartfelt. The young waitress acknowledged the appreciation with a simple bow, her expression calm, yet there was a quiet pride that could be felt in the air. She had turned a situation that had begun as an attempt at humiliation into a moment of triumph and inspiration. The millionaire, now fully humbled, sat silently. Words failed him as he realized the depth of her talent and the strength of her character. He had underestimated her completely, and had learned in the most unexpected way that true greatness is measured by skill, courage, and composure, not wealth or status. The lesson was clear, and it left a lasting impression on him. As the night progressed, the restaurant slowly emptied, but the story of her performance lingered. Staff continued their duties, but there was a renewed sense of pride among them. Diners left talking quietly about the unexpected display of talent and courage they had witnessed. The young waitress moved among her tasks with ease, her humility intact, but the respect she had earned was evident in the way people looked at her. Even after her shift ended, the impact of her performance remained. The millionaire left the restaurant changed, carrying with him a newfound respect for the young woman he had once tried to humiliate. He understood now that wealth and arrogance could not command admiration or respect when faced with true skill and dignity. His encounter with her had become a turning point, forcing him to reflect on his behavior and reconsider what truly mattered. The young waitress, meanwhile, went home quietly, unaware of how deeply she had affected someone who had once thought he could dominate everyone around him. She had faced a challenge with grace, demonstrated her talent, and left an impression that extended far beyond the restaurant walls. For her, it was another day of work, but for everyone who had witnessed her performance, it was a night that would not be forgotten. Her story was one of courage, skill, and humility, a reminder that true talent and character can shine even in the most unlikely circumstances. She had shown that confidence does not need to be loud to be powerful, and that kindness and composure can be just as impactful as any display of wealth or status. The lessons of that night would stay with the diners, staff, and the millionaire himself, a quiet testament to the power of resilience and genuine talent. The restaurant was slowly emptying, the chatter of diners replaced by a calm quiet that settled over the room. The young waitress continued her duties, refilling water glasses and checking on the last few tables with the same patience and grace she had shown all night. Even though her remarkable performance at the piano had become the highlight of the evening, she moved as if nothing extraordinary had happened, focused entirely on her work. Her quiet confidence and humility were as much a part of her as her talent, and it was impossible not to admire her composure. The millionaire remained seated, unable to shake the impression the waitress had left on him. He stared at the emptying restaurant, thinking about the night's events, and felt a deep sense of reflection. This was not just a night where he had been outshone. It was a night that forced him to confront his own arrogance and the way he treated people. He had tried to humiliate her for his amusement, assuming that wealth and status would intimidate anyone. Instead, he had been shown that true strength and value come from skill, dedication, and character. He called over one of his friends and spoke quietly, almost as if confessing a truth that he had never admitted before. I thought it would be easy to show her up, he said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. But she's incredible. I've never seen anyone do what she just did, and she did it with such calm, with such dignity. It's humbling. His friend nodded in agreement, understanding that the night had not gone as expected and that the young waitress had left a lasting impression. Meanwhile, the young woman finished her last tasks for the evening, carefully clearing plates and ensuring that every table had been attended to. Her coworkers watched her with admiration, whispering quietly among themselves about her talent, composure, and courage. They knew that she had faced a difficult situation with grace, turning what could have been an embarrassing moment into a testament to her skill and strength. The millionaire, still seated, felt compelled to approach her. He wanted to express his genuine admiration, to acknowledge the way she had handled the situation, and to offer a sincere apology for his earlier behavior. When she approached his table to ask if everything was satisfactory, he spoke in a tone he had never used before, calm and respectful. I want to apologize, he said. I was wrong to act the way I did earlier. You didn't deserve any of that. Your talent, your poise, it's remarkable. I underestimated you, and I want you to know that I see the truth now. The young waitress looked at him politely, her expression calm. She accepted the apology without hesitation, nodding gently. She didn't need grand gestures of recognition or words of praise. Her dignity and talent spoke louder than any apology could. Her composure remained intact, and her kindness in accepting the millionaire's words reflected the depth of her character. The millionaire, for his part, felt a wave of humility wash over him. He realized that his wealth and arrogance had blinded him to the true value of people he considered beneath him. Here was someone who had faced his condescension with grace, who had shown extraordinary skill, and who had earned the admiration of everyone around her without seeking it. He felt a mix of regret and awe, understanding that he had encountered someone truly exceptional. As she moved away to attend to other diners, he couldn't help but continue watching her. There was a quiet strength in the way she carried herself, a sense of purpose and confidence that radiated naturally. He understood that she had not performed to impress him or anyone else, but because music was a part of who she was. Her actions reflected authenticity, integrity, and resilience, the qualities that no amount of wealth could replicate. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted completely. Patrons who had initially come for a meal had witnessed something extraordinary. They had seen a young woman turn a potential humiliation into a demonstration of skill, courage, and grace. Whispers of admiration floated through the remaining diners, and the staff moved with renewed pride, knowing they had someone remarkable among them. He had come to the restaurant with the intent to assert superiority, but he was leaving with a deep appreciation for someone whose talent and character had humbled him. As the door opened and the cool night air swept in, the young waitress continued her work without fanfare. She was unaware of the profound impact she had on the millionaire and the diners, but her actions had spoken volumes. Her calmness under pressure, her dedication to her craft, and her ability to remain composed had earned her respect in a way that money and status never could. The millionaire walked away, carrying the weight of reflection and newfound understanding. He had learned that arrogance could be dismantled not by confrontation, but by witnessing skill, courage, and authenticity. The young waitress had shown him and everyone present that true greatness is quiet, steady, and earned through dedication and character. Back inside, the young woman finished her shift, walking out into the night with the same quiet dignity she had carried throughout the evening. She had faced a challenge that could have been intimidating, yet she had turned it into a moment of triumph. The lesson of her composure, talent, and resilience lingered in the minds of those who had witnessed it, leaving a lasting impression that extended beyond the walls of the restaurant. The story of that night would remain in the memories of everyone present. Patrons would talk about it for weeks, sharing the remarkable performance and the courage it took to face someone who had tried to humiliate her. The staff would remember the quiet pride they felt, knowing that they had someone exceptional in their midst. And the millionaire, changed by the experience, would carry the lesson of humility and respect into other areas of his life. A reminder that true greatness is found in character and skill, not wealth or status. The young waitress walked home quietly, unaware of how profoundly she had affected the lives around her. She had faced arrogance with grace, transformed a potentially humiliating situation into a moment of inspiration, and shown that talent, humility, and resilience can shine brightest when least expected. Her story was one of quiet triumph, a testament to the power of skill, dignity, and the human spirit. The following days brought a change in the atmosphere around the restaurant. Word had spread quickly about the young waitress's extraordinary performance at the piano. Patrons who had been present that evening shared the story with friends and family, praising not only her talent but also her composure and humility. Some even returned to the restaurant, eager to catch a glimpse of her in action, curious to witness the quiet strength that had left so many in awe. For the young waitress, the attention was unexpected, but she handled it with the same grace that had defined her performance. She continued her duties as before, taking orders, serving food, and interacting with customers politely and attentively. She did not seek recognition or accolades. Her actions were guided by a sense of pride in her work and the love she had for music. Her colleagues noticed a subtle change too. They spoke with admiration and respect, and some quietly asked for advice or tips about performing under pressure. She shared what she could, but always with humility, never boasting about the impact she had created. Meanwhile, the millionaire found himself thinking about the encounter repeatedly. It was not just a memory of witnessing talent, it was a reflection on his own behavior. He realized that his arrogance had blinded him to the value of people he considered beneath him, and that true respect and admiration could not be demanded, only earned. He understood now that the young waitress had shown him a lesson he could not ignore, and he felt compelled to carry this insight into other areas of his life. He made the decision to return to the restaurant, this time not as a man seeking to assert dominance, but as someone genuinely interested in acknowledging the young woman's talent. When he arrived, the restaurant staff greeted him politely, remembering the previous encounter but noting the difference in his demeanor. He asked for the young waitress, and when she appeared, he spoke in a tone that was sincere and respectful. "I wanted to come back," he said. "Not to cause trouble or to test you, but to tell you that what you did that night was remarkable. Your music, your calmness, your grace, it was inspiring. I don't think I've ever met anyone who carries themselves with such strength and skill." The young waitress listened quietly, her expression calm. She nodded politely, acknowledging his words without overreacting. She did not need to seek validation. The recognition was a natural result of her talent and character. The millionaire's words, however, seemed heartfelt, a reflection of the growth he had experienced from the encounter. Over the following weeks, the restaurant saw more visitors, some drawn by curiosity, others by word-of-mouth praise. The young waitress performed occasionally at the piano when the restaurant was not busy, each time captivating the audience and leaving them with a sense of awe. Her performances were not about showing off. They were about sharing her love of music and her ability to connect with people through emotion and artistry. The millionaire, observing from a distance, continued to be humbled by her presence. He saw how easily she could command respect and admiration without arrogance, and he reflected on how rare it was to find someone with both talent and character so seamlessly combined. It reminded him that life's true richness came not from money or status, but from the impact one could have on others through skill, courage, and integrity. As time passed, the young waitress began to gain recognition beyond the restaurant. Local musicians and music enthusiasts reached out, expressing interest in hearing more of her performances. Invitations to small concerts and events started arriving, each an opportunity to showcase the talent that had captivated so many. Despite these opportunities, she remained grounded, continuing her work at the restaurant with the same dedication and humility. The millionaire, observing her journey, was inspired to make changes in his own life. He began to reflect more on how he treated people, recognizing that respect and kindness were far more valuable than the superficial advantages of wealth. His encounters with the young waitress had opened his eyes to the power of humility, skill, and quiet strength, lessons that he carried into his business dealings and personal interactions. Back at the restaurant, the young waitress continued to interact with patrons warmly. People would often come specifically to hear her play, and she treated each performance with the same care, ensuring that her music touched those who listened. Her colleagues noticed the respect she earned not only from diners, but also from the staff who looked up to her as a role model for handling challenges with grace and dignity. The millionaire occasionally returned to the restaurant not seeking attention, but simply to witness the talent and composure that had left such a lasting impression. He would quietly observe, sometimes sitting at a corner table, letting the young waitress's music speak for itself. Over time, he developed a genuine appreciation not only for her talent, but for the character she displayed in every interaction. He realized that true admiration was earned through authenticity, not power or wealth. Her story became a source of inspiration for many. Patrons who witnessed her performances shared tales of courage, resilience, and skill. The young waitress had faced a situation designed to humiliate her and had transformed it into a moment of triumph. She had shown that true talent, when combined with humility and strength of character, could leave a lasting impact on everyone around her. As the months passed, she continued to balance her work at the restaurant with opportunities to perform music in public. Each performance reinforced the lesson she had imparted without intending to, that skill and character were far more powerful than arrogance and entitlement. Her journey inspired both young and old, reminding everyone that true strength comes from within, and that how one treats others can have a profound effect on the world. The millionaire, reflecting on his own growth, often thought back to the night that had started it all. He remembered the smirk he had worn, the sense of superiority he had carried, and how completely it had been dismantled by the young woman's talent and poise. The experience had taught him that humility was not weakness, and that respect could not be commanded, only earned. It was a lesson he would carry with him for the rest of his life. The young waitress, unaware of the depth of her impact, continued her life with grace. She played music not for recognition, but because it was part of who she was. She treated everyone with kindness, whether they were wealthy or poor, patrons or colleagues. Her story, however, became a quiet legend, a reminder that skill, courage, and humility could triumph over arrogance and entitlement. In the end, the young waitress's life did not change dramatically in terms of wealth or status, but the respect, admiration, and opportunities she earned were invaluable. She had faced an uncomfortable situation and turned it into a moment of empowerment. The millionaire learned to see people in a new light, to respect talent and character above all else. And the diners, staff, and everyone who witnessed the event left with a story that would stay with them forever. A story of quiet strength, remarkable skill, and the transformative power of humility and grace.